or stair-stepped pixels, right? So that's why something like an Illustrator is really sort of nice for getting in and doing a little bit of cleanup, what they call cleanup line work. So I'm going to bring the opacity down. I'm always trying to, it's kind of like squinting your eyes at your artwork to reduce the amount of detail. So it gets you to sort of focus on kind of more the salient points of the image, right? What do I mean by that? Well, you start to look at what is important, right? I love the brushes in Medibang Paint, right? You get this really, really kind of nice sort of fall off to it. And so what I'm doing here is I'm hitting sort of the top of the eyelashes. So I'm making it deliberately thick. Now, I don't know if I want to do this. I usually save that for the end, simply because I want to figure out sort of the space that eye occupies. And then I'm going to draw a little bit. I'm drawing the little bit of the eyelid itself. And I'm going to leave that anime space. I call it the anime space because I find that a lot with manga characters and things like that, right? So they'll fill that space in with color as opposed to drawing it in. I've got a happy accident here, but I'm going to leave it. Sometimes what I like to do is to just sort of extend the line down. You have to be careful with that line. It adds just a little bit of punch to your character designs. But at the same time, if you go overboard, it makes your characters look older, right? So the more lines and wrinkles you add in this, the older your character will appear, right? So you got to be really, really careful with that, right? So I'm just going to come through, and I'm dark. I generally like to draw eyes with sort of a darker ring around the outside, and then come in with the pupil, right? So here's what I like to do with the pupil, guys. I like to come in here and I like to make this crescent moon shape. So it leaves this little specular highlight. A specular highlight, little dot of white. And then that hits sort of the corona of the eye. But I don't like to put line work around it. I just like to imply it. And then I'm just going to fade it. Now I'm going to darken. I'm using half texture of the eye a little bit. And you can see I'm darkening it towards the circle, but then I'm just easing off just a bit and lightening it up, right, as I kind of work my way around that ring. Now, the big thing about diving into detailing is you can get lost and you'll be working on the proportions of the things that you'd be surprised. Sometimes you can inadvertently draw an eye too big, right, without even realizing you're doing it, right? So I like to pop out and take a look. Now, back in here. Oh, it looks like I'm going to have to recalibrate my tablet here. So notice how I changed that line up sooner right there. And so I'm just going to sort of leave that there. That looks pretty good. I might thicken up, actually. Mascara, right? So I'm going to back out here a little bit. Bear with me a sec, guys. I want to really quickly calibrate my tablet because there's a slight offset between my cursor point and I'm going to head over to calibrate. I'm going to calibrate this real quick, right? I've noticed over the years too that the calibration is never 100% perfect. Yeah, it's not 100% perfect. It never is. See, I'm floating over the file and my pen tip is like 3 millimeters off of the cursor point. But that's okay. We get it close enough. I noticed that the pen's calibration is perfect around the center of the tablet, but then towards the edges, there's a little bit of a drift between the cursor point and the pen tip. Now I'm working on an older 21UX, so I'm not entirely sure if I might test it on my Mobile Studio Pro a little bit later and check it out. I want to keep this up for the time being because I'd like to customize a few hotkeys for Medibang. I haven't really kind of done that. So I'm going to come in here and add Medibang Pro Paint. And what I like to do when I'm customizing hotkeys is not just have a list and program my preferences. It's just as I work, as I go, I'm like, wow, it would be cool if I had this over here. And then I'll go and I'll kind of punch in the appropriate hotkey. Right? So I'm doing the same on the other side. Now, This is one thing that I notice a lot of younger artists make the mistake on, right? Is that oftentimes the eye on the other side of the face is the same oval, the same size, and what that does is it flattens the image out, right? But you need to think about the curvature of the side of the face, right? One thing that I generally tend to say is take a look at a football or a basketball, football being a UK football, a soccer ball, or a basketball, and see how the shapes or the lines transition around the surface as you look at them, right? So here, your eye would be squished up a little bit, right? And I'm just going to add a little tick line there to continue that oval, right? Another tick line there. And then pupil placement. You got to nail this. This has got to be bang on, right? So I got to make sure that this pupil lines up with that one. So instead of going into the dark line straight away, I'm drawing that complete pupil just to see if it lines up, right? So I'm gonna lock that down. When I say I'm gonna lock something down, it means, okay, that's cool. I'm gonna do a dark line on it now, right? So I'm gonna do a dark line on here. I'm gonna leave that I'm gonna make that pupil a crescent moon again, right? And then we're gonna back out and take a look. Yeah, that's cool. I'm really digging that. I think that works out really, really well. One thing that I'm sort of missing, because I'm like cranked over like this as I'm drawing, is I want to find a canvas rotate tool, because I think at this stage I really, really need one. So I'm just going to have a look. There must be a hotkey for rotating the canvas. Tell me that there is, please. That's just the pan. There we go. So does the R hotkey mean I can, nope. Let's zoom out. Was it the Shift R? Nope, that's not doing it. So that's the rotate left, rotate right. Okay, left and right arrow keys. There we go. But it's got an incremental snap, so I'm not sure I like that. Right? Where did I see that again, guys? So that was in, where did I see that? Yeah, view, rotate left, right. So we have increment. Okay, so what I'm probably going to do, I think, is to put that into my Wacom keys here, right? So left and right arrow key. For now, there's got to be a free rotate tool in here somewhere, but I'll track that down later. So I'm going to go over to my Cintiq device and click on the functions, and I'm going to add Medibang Paint Pro again, except for the function keys, right? So in here, I've got undo, brush size, full screen, light table layer. I don't need those. I want to make sure I'm just changing this for that. Zoom in and zoom out. Yeah, no. So these are my Harmony Premium, Harmony Pro rather, hotkeys. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change this. So keyboard, keystroke, right? Now I'm going to clear this. And I think if I go up, I'm just trying to think what would be logical. So if I go up, it'll be right key. So rotate right. And this one, the keystroke will be, I'm going to clear that. And we'll rotate left. I think was my naming convention. Oh, it was just a space. Okay, so I'm actually going to jam this over the side because I want to test to see if the Harmony hotkeys work. So we've got zoom in here. Nope, that's not going to work. Ooh, I better just program these properly. Otherwise, I'll end up with these really crazy, weird results that I don't want. There we go. What did I just turn on? I have no idea. I should have waited. I got like zero patience. Might as well set my zoom in and zoom out hotkeys while I'm here, actually, because it's just the minus and equals sign that you get on Photoshop as well. That's why I was hoping it'd be the same. So the keystroke, let's clear that. Zoom in. Okay, and then keyboard, keystroke, clear that. Zoom out. Cool. Okay. So those are the two I generally need at this stage. I wish there was a free rotate. You know what? I'm not in too much of a hurry. Let's take a look at. Let's use Google, our friend. Medibang Pro, free rotate canvas. There has to be. I mean, comic book artists, manga artists, animators, illustrators, they all love to rotate their canvas. So there has to be some sort of solution for that. Okay, I'm going to let this crank away. My Wi-Fi is doing all kinds of crazy stuff today. Let's get in there and do a little bit more. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to do in this is to come in and sort of clean up what I've got going on in terms of I activated something. Damn, I activated something. Let me see if we can undo our way back out of it. No, we can't. What did I activate? What are these horizontal lines? They are rulers of some sort. So let's see if we can turn these ruler guys off. There we go. Snapping. Perfect. Snapping off. There you go. All good. Back to normal. There are reasons why I'm not afraid of just diving in and doing a stream for soft familiar with, is because a lot of the few pieces of digital art creation software, you start to figure out how they think after a while. Trust me. So eyebrows are something that I've never happy with. I've never really kind of figured out a good technique that makes me happy. But there we go. That's it's one area, a small little area that I want to focus on at some point. So I'm just jotting that sort of stuff in. And just kind of erasing a little bit of that. I want to get that angle in here. I think the angle is a little too sharp there. I think it would just curve a little bit more like that. And then let's get this sort of nose feature in. Just having a quick look at my other monitor here, just to take a look at the rotate canvas. Go to the menu and no, it just looks like an incremental rotation. Flip and rotate, scaling and transform. Medibang Paint tablet. Yeah. I think I'll just be satisfied with what I've got going on at the moment, right? Okay, I'm just going to be right back in 2 seconds, guys. So I just need a quick refill on my coffee, and I'll see you guys in 2 minutes, and we'll hit more of this face. Okay, we're back. Cool, we're back. Thanks a lot for sticking around, guys. Okay, so yeah, man, I can barely operate without my coffee. All right, so one of the things I'll point out is I used to draw sort of that swoop line for them like this. But there's an old Glen Keane technique that I started practicing, which I sort of got used to, but it was difficult in the beginning. What Glen Keane does is he draws a little bit to control the thick to thin. Now, thick to thin takes a fairly long time to master. It's like gradually adding weight as you stroke the line. This is not easy. It took me years to practice this, right? So that thick to thin, or that calligraphic line, is something that's really, really cool when you've mastered it and becomes second nature. But it's a struggle when you're trying to get there, right? A lot of us in the beginning will just feather a line till we get that thickness that we want. Okay, so I did a double thick line on the rough just to bring out that nostril, and I'm trying to, or the underside of the nose rather, right? So I've done the underside of the nose. Now there are a few different ways. I'm going to just try getting in there with one, and let's make that a little bit kind of neater. Okay, so I'm just debating whether or not that works. I mean, it looks like a fairly large nostril, which takes away from the personality that I'm trying to achieve with this one, right? So I'm just going to come in there, make it smaller, and zoom back out, see what that looks like. That looks nice. I might add a little bit of a tick here just to indicate the curvature of the nose. That's not quite working for me. Whoops. Right. So I'm going to bring that back. Something like that. I think that will work good. Okay. So now let's hit the side, the profile of the face. Profile of the face was, sorry guys. Profile of the face was something that took me a little while to master, right? Now, one of the things that I sort of suggest, which I did in the rough, while you're getting your sort of hand-eye coordination worked out, is I used to just draw the one C curve that way and the other curve that way, right? And you can see that in the rough, right? The hardest part about the profile of the face are the transition curves. And I'll show you what I'm talking about, right? So I'm going to zoom in here, right? This helps me to try to figure it out, right? And I see a lot of early character designs using this sort of approach. But really, what you want to do is you want to come through here and then transition and get that cheek. That's so hard to do. And then come back down this way. And I need to rotate my canvas. So when you rotate your canvas a lot, this is why you're really kind of relying to have all the placements, details figured out for you. Because it is hard for me to tell at this angle if that curve is correct until I rotate back into place, right? And so as I'm redrawing it, I'm really relying on the rough lines underneath. So I think that looks okay. It feels like that line has come out a little bit too far. Only one way to tell. Zoom out. That's looking okay. Now, there's usually a reverse curve. This really kind of depends on the style you're going for, right? But there's usually a reverse curve down through here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. It may or may not work in this situation, but I always like to experiment. So it sort of flattens out and then comes back out this way. See how I've curved it this way? And then I'm curving it back so it's like a little, really super subtle S-curve, right? And then that gives us our chin, right? Now, oftentimes, I know a lot of you guys who are into the manga anime style stuff will go right to a sharp point. I used to do that as well. But I don't know, nice chin, right? It's always quite nice to have that. And so I'm going to zoom back out again. and I've sort of missed. So again, the dangers of going in way too far, but that's not a big deal, right? So it's partially challenging to sort of talk through the drawing process whilst drawing, which this actually makes me feel like, you know, what I might do is I might come down here and re-rough out the line. So it'll like give me a roadmap that I want to follow. So I'm on the rough layer at the moment, and I'm just re-roughing it. It's a bit of an exaggerated sort of face here. But let's take a look. That's all right. I don't mind that. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to my sort of semi-clean development. I might actually have to reduce the opacity on this, just so I can see a clear separation from the two separate pieces of line work. I'm going to rotate. There we go. See, like, because I went to the layer underneath and tightened it up a little bit, I can sort of see where I'm going with the new line that I'm laying down here. I'm also kind of wary of being a little bit too tight going through with this, but that's all right. Let's just, I think I'm slowing down because I'm talking to you guys. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it back, and we'll see if we can get that chin in just a little bit. There we go, right? So I'm coming up this angle here. Now, I like to add just a little bit, like right in here is something called, well, the masseter muscles are here, and then the jawbone slips into what's called the auditory meatus, right? So it's basically like that, right? So I like to kind of, with these types of cartoon characters, just hint at it, just a little bit of a turn going up, like that, right? And of course, zooming out to check to see if it's too harsh or not. And I think it is too harsh, so I'm just gonna sort of soften that angle a little bit, right? And I'll come in and just add a bit of curvature on that. Right? I'm actually want to take this back a little bit. Take it back a bit, right? It's so funny, when I used to do cleanup in animation school, we used to have these thin little metal eraser guards, right? And then very carefully, and it would act as a mask. It's kind of funny. I used to, there was another artist, an American artist animator. Her name's Tamara. I still kind of keep in touch with her over Facebook. She used to have a battery operated eraser. Oh, I was so jealous. So jealous. I think I kept trying to buy it off of her. Which begs the question, why did I not just get my own? I don't know. Animators, we're crazy. Okay, so I'm getting too lost in that line. That line has become my career. Okay, so you can see that it's very curvy. I think I might have gone a bit overboard. So in another pass, I might go through and just sort of flatten it out a little bit. It's a little bit too hills and valley, right? So I'm just sort of flattening it out. So that's looking a bit better, right? And then so I'm going to bring that rotation back, and I'm going to add the neckline here. Right? I got a couple of happy accidents here, which is cool. What I'm talking about are these faded lines here, which could just be like curls of hair. I mean, that looks awesome. Just a little bit of the loose hairs there. I think that looks cool, right? So I'm just gonna sketch those in. I might redraw them, but it's just a nice little reminder that I want to do something like that there. Let's zoom out. Yeah, it just adds a little bit of a touch to it, right? And generally it should be saved for a color layer, but sometimes I'll go in and I'll sketch in the cast shadow. No, you know, in this case, because I got that hair detail, and because I got the rough underneath, sort of implying a shadow, I'll save that for when I do my tone pass. And when I sketch in I'm going to separate the shadow layer. So last thing I'm going to pop in there are the lips. Now I got a couple of choices here. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm using the keyboard hotkeys when I spent all that time programming the hotkeys on the Cintiq. Man, crazy. So generally, what I like to do with the lips is I like to hit a thinner top lip and a thicker lower lip, right? Sometimes the top lip can be so thin, it's just a line. So I'm just sort of debating whether or not to do that in this case, or if a little bit of an upper lip is called for here. I do like that little bit of an upper lip. I like the top end of that line, but not the bottom. That there, right? And I think I like that, right? Right? So something like that. Now, how am I going to curl the upper lip? Because that has a lot to do with the personality. I don't know. I think I'm just going to do a little flick there, and then we'll zoom out and we'll take a look, right? Yeah, that looks all right. I think that's good enough, right? So ears, especially on a character like this, I've always used the tried and true kind of cartoon technique. So first of all, I'm going to thin it out. Now I always want to put in that little bit of an S-curve. This is also a very difficult S-curve to draw, guys. So, I've gone really hairy with my line here, but I'm sort of aware of the time, I think. I just wanted this to be a short, sweet kind of thing. Oh well, I'm having fun, guys. What I'm talking about is I'll draw. So notice I put that little bump there. The bump there is part of the ear, right? And I'll come up this way, and I'll draw this curve, right? And I'll just hint that it's going to continue, just a little hint. But then I'm going to grab from inside and continue that down, right? Oh, it's a little too thick. The outside of the ear is too thick, right? Something like that. And then I'll just draw this, and then done. These faint squiggles under here, right? So I'm just going to add that. Actually, I think gravity would be pulling it this way, wouldn't it? Right? So that looks pretty cool. I'm really sort of happy with that. I don't want to go overboard with the scraggles of hair. It'll just look weird, right? So that's cool. And an accessory, right? So yeah, I know superheroes, warriors, fighters, they wouldn't be wearing piercings, but I don't know. I think maybe with the Phoenix, she might. I mean, a lot of superhero costumes are nonsensical, so this might be a bad idea. I don't know. But I think with a lot of ideas, you got to get it down, right? You got to zoom out and see if you like that or not. I don't know if she'd be I think she would just wear a hoop or just a stud kind of thing. So little Phoenix piercing, I don't know. So I'm going to, but the one thing I want to kind of impress upon you guys is the minute you think about it, draw it, right? Because you can't make a judgment call until you see, right? And it's no skin off your back to just rough it in and go, oh, I'm going to check this out, right? So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to pop in one of these guys and then just do something like that. I got bad tangents there on the bottom of the ear, so that tangency. And then let's shade it in, see what it looks like. Right, just a little bit, just to indicate that something's going on the surface there. And it's cool, but it's not following gravity. You know what? Let's not go with the piercing, not just yet. And I have a deeper think about that because that doesn't feel right to me, right? So I'm gonna leave that for the time being. Okay, let's leave her with a clean neck for now. And that's sort of slow going. We're at 37 minutes. So that's just a little bit of kind of my process in terms of approaching kind of cleanup. To be honest, I think I've gone too tight. I'm like really tight and I'm really concentrated on cleaning up this character when really I should be bombing through as quick as I can and then sort of getting tighter and slower with another pass. So next session, I'll kind of continue developing this Phoenix character. I'm not 100% on the pose, right? Not yet, because it's kind of like, well, what is she doing, Now, every pose, your character has to be doing something, right? Like all she's doing is looking at the camera and her hands are kind of, what are they doing? So I want to spend a little bit of time and think about that a little bit deeper in terms of what her pose is. Even if I relax her hand a little bit more on the side of her hip, I just got to figure out what's going on there. Unless I put energy balls. That's always a good cheat, right? If you draw a character with hands that are kind of gun out and you're not sure what they're doing, they're sort of floating in space, put an energy ball at the end of each hand. And it's like, oh, okay, there you go. She's just charging up her powers. Well, yeah. All right, I'm going to leave it at that for today, guys. I wanted to flip over and do a half-hour session on my ZBrush sculpt, which I might do after this, but that will be a separate stream. So you guys are welcome to stick around and tune in. It'll take me about 5 minutes to set up, and I'm going to dive into ZBrush. All right,